Welcome to Relationship Exposed. In today's video, it all started with a mistake, one so small it almost felt like fate nudged it into place. Miles wasn't supposed to be off that day. His supervisor had mixed up the schedule, and it ended with Miles being sent home hours earlier than planned. At first, he didn't think much of it. He smiled, grateful for the unexpected time off. Maybe it was a sign. A chance to bridge the growing distance he'd felt between him and Amanda lately. Their conversations had thinned, hugs had shortened, and the warmth between them seemed to have quietly cooled. Still, Miles believed in effort. He believed that love wasn't just about fireworks, it was also about small, consistent gestures. So, on a whim, he decided to stop by Amanda's favorite bakery, picked up her favorite dessert, and thought of having a quiet dinner together. Nothing extravagant. Just something that could thaw the chill that had crept into their marriage. But when Miles stepped into their home, everything appeared normal. The lights were off, the silence unbroken. Even the staircase, which usually creaked slightly beneath his weight, offered no warning of what he was about to witness. As he walked quietly down the hall, the faint sound of laughter filtered through the closed bedroom door. It was light, playful, unfamiliar. Amanda rarely laughed like that anymore. His steps slowed. Confusion washed over him. He hesitated for a moment, placing his hand on the doorknob. And then, slowly, almost unwillingly, he turned it. What he saw the moment the door opened would scar him for life. Amanda. Naked. In the arms of another man. But not just any man, Blake Harmon, the celebrity chef Amanda often gushed about. The man whose face adorned TV ads and cooking shows. A man Miles had only seen on screens, never imagining he'd walk into his own bedroom and find him entangled with his wife on the very bed they'd shared for over a decade. Time seemed to freeze. Amanda's body stiffened in shock, her eyes wide with guilt and panic. Blake scrambled to grab the sheets, stunned by the sight of Miles standing there, unmoving, eyes locked on them. But Miles didn't scream. He didn't break. Instead, he did something unexpected. With trembling fingers, he pulled out his phone and began recording, his hands shaking, his jaw clenched. Amanda, horrified, tried to shield her face and begged him to stop. Blake stood up hastily, fumbling to get dressed. But Miles didn't care. He placed the phone gently on the dresser and marched toward Blake, not to strike him, though the urge must have been overwhelming, but to confront him face to face. Inches apart, with a voice low and controlled but burning with fury, Miles said only 4 words, "Get out. Right now." Blake stuttered, attempting some form of apology, but Miles didn't listen. Amanda yelled at them to stop, but the damage had already been done. Blake scooped up his clothes and hurried out, tripping as he left the bedroom. Miles followed him downstairs and opened the front door wide, watching in silence as the man fumbled across the street, his shirt half on, trying to disappear into the shadows. When Blake was gone, Miles returned inside and faced Amanda. She was perched at the edge of the bed, clutching a sheet around her, her face pale, lifeless. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then came the inevitable question, one that shattered the last fragments of hope clinging to his heart: how long has this been going on? His voice was eerily calm. Amanda stammered, spewing excuses. It was a mistake, it didn't mean anything, you've been distant, but none of it made sense. None of it could justify what he'd seen. Without another word, Miles picked up his phone and walked out of the house. He drove aimlessly at first, his mind numb, his chest tight. Eventually, he pulled into the front lot of the fire station where he worked. He sat there in the car, staring at the steering wheel, trying to breathe. But each breath was a battle. He thought about everything: Amanda, their home, the trust he'd poured into their life together. And then his thoughts shifted to Zoe, their 17-year-old daughter. Bright, artistic, full of dreams. His heart broke again. How would this affect her? How could he tell her that the foundation of their family was cracked, broken by betrayal? That night, Miles didn't go home. He couldn't. He stayed at the firehouse, sleeping on one of the bunks after stopping by a pharmacy to buy something, anything, that would help him calm down. His phone vibrated all night with Amanda's messages and missed calls. He didn't open a single one. He needed space. And unlike many people who hide from pain or pretend things are fine, Miles knew better. He had faced infernos, real ones. And he knew, some fires can't be extinguished with water. Sometimes, the only way to stop the burn is to cut off the fuel. And in that moment, Amanda lost the right to be part of the life he had fought to build. The next morning, without delay, Miles met with a divorce lawyer. This wasn't a passing affair. It wasn't a one-time lapse of judgment. This was betrayal with a face, a name, and a place. A deliberate rupture of vows. A public humiliation. He gathered his evidence, including the recording. His focus was sharp. He wasn't seeking revenge, he was seeking justice. Later that day, he requested temporary housing in one of the station's rest quarters. It was a small space, just a cot and a desk, but it was what he needed. Silence. Distance. A place where the walls didn't echo with laughter that wasn't meant for him. Amanda's first call came that night. He ignored it. Then came voicemails, texts, even video messages. By the third day, she appeared in person at the firehouse. Her appearance was startling, no makeup, swollen eyes, lips trembling. She said nothing. Just handed him a sealed envelope and walked away without making eye contact. He waited until the end of his shift to open it. The letter inside was long, written in Amanda's familiar handwriting. She begged for forgiveness, calling the affair a mistake. She claimed it started after their relationship cooled off, that she felt neglected and invisible. She said she wasn't blaming him, but that she had been lost. The letter ended with a plea, think of Zoe before making any final decisions. That was the part that pierced through. Zoe. Always Zoe. Their bond had always been special. While Amanda tended to be strict and demanding, Miles was her safe place. He was the one she confided in when she failed a test, the one she turned to when her friends betrayed her. They used to sit on the porch together, talk about her dreams, laugh at silly jokes. And now he had to find a way to explain to her why everything was falling apart. Not just the marriage, but their family. A few days later, Zoe came home from school to find drawers open and her father's belongings gone. The scent of his cologne had faded from the hallway. She didn't need an explanation. She just knew. She went upstairs, called him, no answer. The next morning, she showed up at the station. Miles met her outside, arms open. She fell into them, sobbing, not demanding answers, but asking softly, just tell me what's happening. He took her to a quiet cafe nearby. And with tears in his eyes and pain in his voice, he told her the truth. No theatrics. No exaggeration. Just the raw, unfiltered reality. Amanda had cheated. He had walked in on her. He wasn't going back. Zoe sat still, absorbing the blow. After a long pause, she looked up and whispered, "You're not going to fight for her?" Miles shook his head. He told her that the fight had already taken place inside him. Now, he had to protect what mattered of her. That's when Zoe pulled out her phone, her hands trembling. She showed him a photo. It was her boyfriend, Tyler. Standing beside him in the picture was Blake Harmon. The world tilted again. Tyler, the boy Zoe had been dating for months, was Blake's son. The betrayal suddenly expanded. The affair wasn't just Amanda's secret. It had unknowingly infiltrated his daughter's life too. Zoe, now pale and panicked, explained that she hadn't told her parents much. Just that she was seeing someone older, kind, mature. She had no idea the connection would explode like this. She now feared that her father might hate Tyler for his lineage. But Miles, as shattered as he was, kept his composure. He reached across the table, held his daughter's hand, and promised her he wouldn't punish her for the sins of others. He said he needed time, but he would never make her bear the weight of adult failures. Still, things weren't the same. Over the next few days, Zoe became distant. Conversations dried up. Amanda, sensing the rift, began swooping in, twisting the narrative. She told Zoe that Miles was being stubborn, that he'd always put work before family, that he refused to even listen. Confused and torn, Zoe stopped calling, stopped replying to texts. When Miles did get responses, they were one-word answers. Emoji replies. Vague "I'm busy" messages. He could feel her slipping away, and it tore him apart. When the divorce papers were finalized, Miles knew he needed one last conversation with his daughter. He asked to meet her at the park they used to visit when she was little. Sitting beside her on the same old bench, he laid everything out again, slower this time, softer. He wasn't trying to turn her against her mother. But he needed her to understand that choices have consequences, and Amanda had made hers. He told her he was still processing everything, and that included Tyler. When Zoe asked if he hated him, Miles said honestly, "I don't know yet. I'm trying to separate the man from the boy. The father from the son." He didn't want bitterness to guide his decisions. Zoe nodded silently and walked away. From that point on, everything changed. The man who had once brazenly stepped into Miles' house, laid in his bed, and fled in disgrace wasn't just a scandalous intruder. Miles had the gut feeling this wasn't about lust or a passing affair, it was deeper. Calculated. Something didn't add up. And Miles, who'd once committed to Amanda with unwavering loyalty, wasn't about to let this end without understanding the full truth. He needed more than closure, he needed clarity. So he made a decision that changed everything. He reached out to a private investigator, a former federal agent who had transitioned into financial crime investigations. A quiet, seasoned professional with a knack for seeing through facades. Miles laid everything on the table: names, dates, the affair, Amanda's connection, Blake's businesses, and especially his growing suspicion that Blake was more than just a celebrity chef with a weakness for married women. He asked the investigator to follow the money, to dig into Blake's companies and tax records. No gossip. No noise. Just cold, hard facts. Within a few days, the investigator returned, and what he found sent a chill down Miles' spine. There were glaring irregularities in Blake's financials. The income Blake reported to authorities didn't match the lavish lifestyle he flaunted online. Massive deposits were hidden through ghost suppliers, and there were shell transactions tied to multiple properties. His restaurants were funneling cash in complex loops, evading tax oversight with precision. Miles read each report with a steady hand and a boiling heart. This wasn't just about Amanda anymore. Blake had built an empire on lies, deceiving not only his partners, but also the government. Fueled by a quiet fire, Miles compiled all the findings into a single file and passed them on to a friend from high school who now worked with the tax bureau. He didn't ask for favors. Didn't name drop. He simply said, "This is something worth looking into," and walked away. He wasn't seeking a public victory. He didn't want attention. Justice, for him, was personal. And now it was in motion. Weeks later, whispers turned to headlines. News broke of a federal investigation involving a prominent culinary figure suspected of large-scale tax evasion. At first, the names were withheld, but the connection to Blake's restaurant group was unmistakable. He began canceling public appearances. His PR team scrambled. Interviews were dropped. Investors pulled out. And when the name Blake Harmon was finally tied to the investigation, everything unraveled. He was accused of hiding hundreds of thousands of dollars over several years. It escalated fast, from civil audits to criminal charges. Amanda panicked. Within days of the exposure, Blake ghosted her. He didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't show up. Like a man trying to save a sinking ship by throwing over the dead weight, he cut her loose. The two were never seen together again. Meanwhile, Zoe, still reeling from the family collapse, saw Blake's face on the news. She heard the word criminal and froze. Confused and heartbroken, she reached out to Tyler, desperate for answers. But all she received was a single, cold message: "I need time to understand all of this." That was the last she ever heard from him. Within hours, Tyler deleted his social media accounts, blocked her, disappeared. The emotional damage on Zoe was devastating. The boy she'd loved had vanished. Her mother's betrayal had been humiliating enough. But now the boy she trusted had severed all ties without a word of explanation. She wasn't just a casualty in her parents' war, she was collateral damage in a story that had spiraled out of control. Miles read about Blake's arrest in the newspaper. He didn't gloat. He didn't cheer. He simply closed the paper, leaned back in his chair, and took a long, deep breath. The man who had disrespected his marriage and violated his trust was now facing the weight of his own deceit. What had started with lust and arrogance ended with cuffs and scandal. It was poetic, in a tragic kind of way. Amanda, now disgraced and avoided, tried again to rebuild a bridge with Zoe. She sent small messages, suggested dinner dates, bought little gifts. But Zoe saw through every gesture. To her, it wasn't about love, it was about redemption. Amanda wasn't reaching out because she cared, she was trying to salvage her image. But trust isn't rebuilt with chocolates and shopping bags. And Zoe was too hurt to pretend otherwise. Miles, on the other hand, kept his distance, but stayed consistent. He didn't beg for attention. He didn't hover. Instead, he showed up when it mattered. He quietly paid for her art classes, attended her gallery shows, watched from the back of the room, never seeking credit. His love was silent but steady. And gradually, Zoe began to notice. The pain didn't disappear, but the silence between them grew less sharp. Then one day, Zoe knocked on the door of the firehouse. Her eyes were red. Her voice was low. And she simply said, "Thanks for not throwing him in my face." Miles didn't need an explanation. He knew exactly what she meant. She was talking about Tyler, and how her father had never vilified the boy, never used him as a weapon in the war between right and wrong. That single sentence brought a lump to Miles' throat. It was the first time in months he felt his daughter still saw him not just as her father, but as the man she once trusted fully. In the months that followed, things slowly shifted. Amanda faded into silence. Blake faced trial. And Zoe, while still distant, began to return to the man who never gave up on her. Miles remained at the firehouse quarters. It was small, the mattress was stiff, the light flickered, but it was safe. The house he once called home was now a place of memories too heavy to carry. On his days off, he'd wander the city, visit new parks, and on brave days, scroll through old photos on his phone, searching for the moment where it all began to crumble. That's when he met Denise. It wasn't a grand encounter. He was at a crowded cafe, just finishing his coffee, when a woman asked if she could share his table. She had a lab coat draped over her arm and a tote bag full of books. They exchanged polite smiles. No flirting. Just civility. And that was it. 2 weeks later, their paths crossed again, this time at a community animal adoption fair. Denise was volunteering. Miles recognized her, and this time they talked a little more. She was a vet. Divorced. Mother of 2. Like him, she was learning how to piece together a life that once felt whole. The connection grew slowly. No urgency. No games. They met casually, at dog shelters, weekend markets, or while volunteering. Denise was kind, honest, and real. She didn't wear a mask. She spoke about her kids, her fears, the anxiety of trusting again. And Miles, he understood. Every word. Every pause. They didn't try to impress each other. They just existed, together. One afternoon, Zoe unexpectedly met Denise during a brief visit to her dad's place. There were no fireworks. But also, no coldness. Just a quiet acknowledgement. Later that night, Zoe texted him, "She's calm. Better than I expected." It wasn't approval. But it was acceptance. And for Miles, that was enough. In time, Miles and Denise grew closer. Together, they helped at food drives, organized toy donations, and visited community centers. It wasn't a fairy tale. But it was real. And sometimes, that's even better. Denise's kids began warming up too. Slowly. At their own pace. Miles helped with schoolwork, went to their soccer games, made them laugh over burnt pancakes. It wasn't about replacing anyone. It was about being present. On Zoe's 18th birthday, she asked for one thing: everyone together. That night, they all sat at Denise's dinner table. Miles, Zoe, Denise, and her kids. The candles were lit, the cake was small, but the smiles were genuine. As Zoe blew out the flame, Miles felt tears press behind his eyes. The family he once built with Amanda was gone. But here, in this moment, something new was growing. Not a replica. Not a substitute. But a home, with its own rhythm and heart. Later that night, as he closed the front door and looked back into the living room, he saw Zoe laughing with Denise's kids on the couch. Denise was in the kitchen, humming softly. It wasn't the life he had envisioned years ago. But it was real. Flawed. Beautiful. Honest. The betrayal that once shattered his soul had become a turning point, a painful, necessary eruption that cleared the way for something new. In the end, Miles realized that freedom wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about public victories or punishing the guilty. It was about choosing peace. About forgiving quietly. And allowing life to grow again, in the cracks where everything once broke apart. Thank you for watching Relationship Exposed. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us again for more true, emotional journeys. See you next time.